Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Making Milestones. This is our weekly web series where we at Doman International talk about important topics in child development. And on this specific episode, I'm going to be discussing 7 nasty lies that the world tells special needs parents. So what are things that parents of kids with special needs are being told sometimes on a routine daily basis by people around them that are untrue and that have detrimental and negative effects on families and on the kids themselves? So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. So, as I said, Making Milestones is a web series meant to help families of kids with special needs achieve the impossible. And I am your host, Spencer Doman. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for Doman International, which is an organization that gives holistic solutions to families of kids with special needs. So in this episode, I'm going to be discussing first, what are dangerous lies that are told all the time to parents of kids with special needs. I'm going to be discussing why these myths take a very negative emotional toll on parents, and also why these lies often stop and even slow kids from making the progress that they so desperately need. Now, before I get into the lies themselves, let's talk a little bit about who are the people who are telling these myths, these untruths. Well, I'd say probably the greatest offenders are professionals. So these could be doctors, therapists, teachers. These aren't necessarily people who are have bad intentions. They might be people who genuinely care about the child themselves, but yet they've been taught bad information, maybe in school or from other professionals. And so they're continuing to spread certain myths that may be scientifically invalid, but still very, very negative in practice. You know, also, I have to say that the internet can be problematic in this regard, just like how parents can find answers on the internet. There are a lot of lies spread as well. And so a lot of time parents are reading things, maybe in blog posts, online articles, could be videos that are spreading untruths. And last but not least, sometimes these are coming from family, friends, it could be even other parents. Again, these people may be completely well-intentioned. I don't want to say that just because I mention one of the lies in my presentation today, that means someone who tells you it is a bad person. Just the opposite. Many people who say these things are well-intentioned. They genuinely care about the family. They just don't know how to help. And so they've maybe heard certain things or they've come to certain conclusions which aren't true. And so unfortunately, they're spreading these things. Let's get right into the heart of the matter. Let's get into our 7 lies. So lie number 1, your child will never blank, right? So this might be your child will never walk, your child will never talk, your child will never be able to see, your child will never be able to go to school like other kids. This could be dozens of different things. And you know, if I had $5 for every time I've sat across in my office from a parent and they've told me, you know, oh, I went to see an expert and the expert told me my child would never walk or never talk or would never see, and look at my child now, and I see a child who's walking, talking, seeing, you know, whatever. And sometimes these kids haven't even benefited from the Doman method. They might have, you know, just developed that way naturally or had some other kind of intervention which helped them. I would be a much richer person if I had $5 for every time that's happened. And so, you know, it's really unfortunate that some people, and especially this usually comes from professionals, seem to feel completely comfortable in predicting a child's future. You know, they'll say, this kid will never do this. Now, how they're able to look into a crystal ball and make that prediction, I don't know. But as I said, it's often untrue. And, you know, parents shouldn't accept this lie. You know, if parents came to me and said to me, Spencer, my child cannot walk. And if I said to them, I can promise you that with my treatment program, I can get your child to walk, I don't think a lot of parents would trust me, because they would say, how could you promise something like that? And they would be right. Who would trust someone who would make promises like that? You would think the person's a charlatan or a quack. But on the other hand, it's completely acceptable, right, to say a child will never do something. And you know what the crazy thing is? Now that I've seen so many children completely make these predictions, demonstrate these predictions to be wrong, right? When these kids go on to walk and talk, you know what happens? Parents bring the kids back to the professional, right? And they'll even say to the professional, remember when you said my child would never talk? Look at him now. And you know what the professional will almost always say? That same person who said it would never happen, they almost always say, oh, it would have happened anyway, right? So here the parent might have worked very hard, maybe done the Doman Method or some other kind of treatment, and all the professional has to say is, oh, it would have happened anyway. The same person who said it wasn't going to happen in the first place. So that's lie number one, very destructive, because it just crushes the hopes of parents. It often leads parents to not look for solutions because they don't think that there are any answers. And that's really, really frightening. This has hurt thousands and thousands of families around the world. The second lie, very similar to the first, is that your child will never understand like other children, right? This could be your child will never understand speech, your child isn't intelligent, and your child will always have a low IQ. There are many different ways of saying this. But this is a terrible thing to say. And this is a lie because the professionals who tell parents this are under a very wrong, they've made a wrong conclusion. And that is, they look at this child who perhaps is unable to speak, and they assume that because a child can't speak that they don't understand. And this is a silly conclusion to come to, because the ability to understand is an auditory ability, right? It's, my ability to understand speech is because neurons carry information from the muscles in my ear to my brain, and that's how I'm able to understand. Speech, on the other hand, is a motor ability. It's a very different pathway. It requires sometimes 8 to 12 different areas of the brain working in unison to produce speech. Very different from the ability to understand. And so telling a parent that your child is unable to understand just because the kid can't speak is a completely wrong conclusion. Very often the professionals who say this don't actually know how to evaluate a child's understanding, and so they're making a lazy assumption. My favorite example of this is the late, great Stephen Hawking, right? The astrophysicist, the great genius, who unfortunately contracted motor neuron disease, which is a disease that attacked the motor neurons in his brain. And so unfortunately, Stephen Hawking lost all of his motor abilities in his life, right? He wasn't unable to speak anymore. He was unable to walk, use his hands, and so on. But Stephen Hawking never lost the slightest bit of his genius, his brilliance. And the fortunate thing for Hawking was that because people knew he was brilliant before he got motor neuron disease, they continued to respect his intelligence. And fortunately, some technology was created for him that allowed him to continue to communicate with others with just slight movements of his finger. And so what can we learn from this story of Stephen Hawking? Well, what I always say to people and to parents is that imagine if Stephen Hawking, for a second, had been born the way he was at the end of his life. What if he had been born unable to move, unable to speak, unable to use his hands? Do you think anyone would have respected his intelligence? Do you think anyone would have thought that he had the genius to be an astrophysicist? We all know that sadly, the answer is probably not, right? People would have assumed he was unintelligent because he's unable to speak. And so this happens with kids with special needs all the time. They're judged by their inability to speak. And this shows really a ignorance on the part of the professionals evaluating the kids. They just don't understand that comprehension of speech through the auditory pathway and speech, which is a language ability, are two different neurological pathways. Never assume that just because a child can't speak, it means that they're unintelligent. So another lie that we can throw out the window. Okay, let's go to, okay. Oh, did I miss lie number 3? I think I did. Oh, okay. So lie number 3 is that your child's condition cannot be helped. Sorry, the slide's wrong. But this, again, a very negative prediction to be telling parents. And by the way, I could say the same thing that I've said for the last 2 lies, right? Which is, how can you predict the future? But when you look at children with special needs, they're given diagnoses such as autism, developmental delay, cerebral palsy, ADHD, brain injury. Sometimes they have genetic conditions like Down syndrome. And so regardless of the diagnosis, parents are told usually, your child really can't be helped. Your child will never be normal. You know, I've been around kids with special needs long enough now that I've seen children diagnosed with severe autism go on to act in Shakespeare plays, play major Shakespearean roles where they have to memorize and in front of an audience, perform thousands of lines of Shakespeare. I've seen children with cerebral palsy do triathlons where they swim, bike, run. I've seen children with Down syndrome graduate with master's degrees. So whenever I see a lie like this, where your child cannot be helped, I am incredibly skeptical, and I don't think parents should listen to those predictions, because the predictions are very often wrong. Okay, we're back on track now with my slides. We're at lie number 4 now, and for those of you who are joining us a little late, we're discussing 7 nasty lies that the world tells special needs parents. Lie number 4 is, just accept the situation and move on. Now, this one might come as a surprise to people because it sounds so nice and so genuine, right? The idea of acceptance is a good thing. And so you might be thinking, how is this a lie? So it's a lie because of what is not being said, right? Sometimes lies are not so much in what is being said, but rather what is not being said, what is implied by the comment. And often when people say, just accept the situation and move on, what they're really saying is, accept that there's nothing that you can do about this, right? Just kind of give up. And acceptance and not taking action are 2 different things. It's very possible to accept a situation, right? I agree that acceptance is very important. I don't believe that it's healthy to be in denial. And so if a parent has a child of special needs, of course they need to accept the situation. But then the next question needs to be, okay, I've accepted the situation, now what am I going to do about it, right? Acceptance is really healthy when you understand, okay, what is the next step going to be? And so unfortunately, when people often say this to parents, they're really saying there's no future here, there's no hope, just accept that there's nothing you can do about it. That's a very negative thing to be telling a parent, again, telling them that there's really no hope for their child. And, having, again, been around children who went well beyond any predictions made for them, and seeing that because of neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change and heal, we now know that children with neurodevelopmental conditions, with special needs, are able to improve if you do the right kinds of treatment programs and interventions with them. And so, if I were saying, if I wanted to change this, I would say, just accept the situation and let's decide on what are the next steps to help a child, rather than using this to kind of brush off the problem, which unfortunately many people do. Now, lie number 5 is, this is your fault. Now, I have to say, few people are so cruel as to tell a parent directly to their face that it's their fault for their child's special needs. But that being said, I have heard many, many comments made to parents over the years that what is implied I could tell you many examples of this. Moms who had, a child with Down syndrome. Maybe the mom is 42 years of age, and, a doctor will say something like, well, you really shouldn't have a baby at that age. The risk the risk is greater once you get to a certain age of having a Down syndrome baby. Or I've heard, a child is developmentally delayed or maybe has learning difficulties. And I've heard moms get chastised for not breastfeeding because it's good for IQ. I've heard parents who have multilingual households, right? Where they might speak multiple languages, where professionals will tell them, your child is speech delayed because you speak to them in multiple languages. All of these are forms of parent blaming, right? And there's nothing more lazy for a professional to do when they are confronted with a patient with a special need, to blame the parents for the child's problems. Having worked with now, I think, thousands of families of special needs, I can see that not only are parents not to blame for their child's neurological issues, that often it's the parents who are the greatest hope for the child's rehabilitation. And so this idea that we're going to blame parents for their child's problems is absolutely detrimental to parents. By the way, feeling guilty is very often just a reality of parents already. Even for well neurotypical children, parents often feel guilty, feeling they're not providing enough for their child, not sending them to a good enough school, not getting them enough gifts, whatever. It's a part of being a parent, this feeling of guilt. And unfortunately, when a parent has a child with special needs, this feeling, whether it should or shouldn't be, I don't think it should be felt more. Unfortunately, parents with kids with special needs tend to feel this guilt even more. And so a professional kind of playing on that guilt is really a cruel thing to do. And so line number 5, this is your fault, needs to be thrown out forever. Okay, line number 6, give both of your children equal time or your neurotypical kid will grow resentful. This is a very interesting claim, very interesting. It's terrible advice to give to a parent of a special needs kid, but very interesting. So let's break this one apart, shall we? Okay, so first of all, this is told to parents of kids with special needs all the time. And basically what professionals or other, friends or family are saying with this claim is they're saying, look, you've got a child with special needs. And you've got a well neurotypical child. Now, don't give your child with special needs more time, to help them learn how to walk or talk or whatever. Because if you give them more time than the neurotypical child, then the neurotypical kid will resent their brother or sister for getting more time than them. And they will resent you as parents as well, because you didn't give them the time that they needed. Now, this is such an outrageous claim for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, it is natural in families, and especially with parents, to give more time to children who need it more, right? This makes sense. If a child gets the flu, don't you give the child with the flu more time than their brother or sister to help them recover? If a child gets chicken pox, do you give more time to that kid? If you were to say to everyone, oh, my child is having a fever, but I don't believe in giving more time to my child with fever than my other kids. So, I'm going to divide my time up equally amongst all my children. Other people would think you're crazy. And yet with kids with special needs, this is what is told to parents all the time. They're basically being told, don't give more time to the kid who needs it. You got to give equal time to all the kids. Now, let's talk about this. I have been around hundreds and hundreds of families of kids with special needs where I have met brothers and sisters of the children. And that the vast majority of times, these brothers and sisters are the most wonderful human beings you will ever meet. They typically adore their sibling with special needs. They will do anything for them. They look out for them. They're often their greatest advocate. And the idea that brothers and sisters of kids with special needs are resentful, like nasty little kids, is ridiculous. And I don't know who created this lie, but someone did. Now, is it possible for siblings to feel jealous of one another? Of course. It happens all the time, even without kids with special needs. The most important thing is that all children in the household should feel like respected members of the household. So surely, if you have a well neurotypical child and a child with special needs, and you tell the neurotypical child, all right, kid, get out of here. I'm going to work with your brother or sister for 3 hours. I don't want to see you. Yeah, sure. That child is going to feel like they're being ignored because they are being ignored. But if you say to the neurotypical child, hey, John, I really need your help with your little sister, Lisa. Can you help me with the different parts of her treatment program? You're so good at helping with her tactile integration, and you're so helpful when we're trying to get her to walk under Glenn's ladder. Can you help out with that? If you involve the sibling in the life of the child with special needs, and more importantly, really teach that other sibling that they are like the assistant for mom and dad, that they are a crucial and respected member of the household, that child will not be jealous because that child will know their rightful and respected place in the home. So this idea to give both kids equal time is ridiculous. It's very bad for kids with special needs. It hurts them. It takes away time from their treatment that they need. But on the other hand, we will always try to include the brothers and sisters in the treatment programs of their special needs siblings so that they know that they are an important and respected person in the household, and so they won't be resentful then. Now we've come to our last lie, the seventh lie that's told to special needs parents all the time. This is having a child with special needs will destroy your family. This one, parents are told this all the time. Your marriage probably won't last. You probably won't make it with a kid with special needs. What a terrible thing, by the way, to say to a family. Now, I have seen many times families with special needs in our clinic, right, at Doman International, I'll kind of observe them in our waiting room, and there they are with a severely brain injured child, might be a child who has not yet learned how to walk or talk. And they are there laughing and playing and truly enjoying each other's company. They are sometimes the happiest of families. Sometimes people who go through very tough situations in life actually are brought closer together by adversity. I have to say that I've never had to struggle in my life as much as parents of kids with special needs have to struggle. But when I've struggled, often it's with the people who have helped me through those situations and been with me through those situations that I feel closest to in my life. And that's because tough times bring people closer together, right? It can drive people apart, or it can bring people closer together depending on how they react to it. And so having a shared mission in a family to help a kid with special needs, where everyone, mom, dad, brothers and sisters, all feel like they're a part of this battle and they are a tribe working together to help this kid, that's a very powerful thing, right? Nothing can bring humans closer together than this idea of having a shared mission together. And so that's what parents need to be direct about with one another and with the kids, saying, look, everyone, this is our situation. None of us asked for this situation, right? None of us asked for John to have cerebral palsy, or for Lisa to have autism, or, Mike to have a developmental delay. None of us asked for that, but that's the situation that we're in. And, in our family, we fight together. We come together, and we're going to do everything we can to help John or Lisa or Mike, and we're going to work together. And so this is what each of us are going to do each day as part of the treatment program for your brother or sister. And so let's get started. And so when everyone knows what the goal is, and when everyone knows what their part is in achieving that goal, it does bring the family closer together. So telling a family that a child with special needs is going to destroy their family, again, you can see so many of the lies that I've discussed today are just predictions of the future that people make, which are completely absurd and that they have no ability to be able to tell. No one can tell what the future of your family holds, and no one can tell what the future of your child holds. And if anyone tells you what's going to happen in the future, they're either they've got some kind of special magical ability, or they don't know what they're talking about. And in my opinion, most of the time they probably have no idea what they're talking about. And so I don't think parents should put a lot of stock in people who predict the future. Okay, well, if you want to learn more, right, if you agree with some of the lies that I've discussed today, and if you want to learn more about holistic solutions for kids with special needs, you can watch my free webinar about the Doman Method and holistic solutions that can help your child. Now, in this webinar, I will teach you about the Doman Method, and I'll talk about cognitive, physical, nutrition, and sensory treatment programs that are essential for child development. That's what the Doman Method is, right? It's a system of holistic treatments for kids with special needs to help their brain development. If you want to attend the free webinar, which is called an Introduction to the Doman Method, you can go to domaninternational.org/free webinar. That's domaninternational.org/free webinar. Now, if your child has any developmental delays or you have concerns about your child's development, what Doman International does is it provides teaching, guidance, and support for families. And so if you want to know if the Doman Method might be right for your child, right? If you're unsure if the special needs of your child qualifies them to be helped by the Doman Method, you can always reach out to us. You can go to our website, domaninternational.org, and you can fill out the contact form. So just click on the button in the top right-hand corner that says contact, fill out a contact form, and one of our worldwide representatives will get in touch with you. If you would like to watch future episodes of Making Milestones, if you'd like to learn more about treatment programs to help your child, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the Doman International page. If you're watching me on Facebook right now, please like and follow our page. And if you're watching this on Instagram, please follow us. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining me today. I hope you all know now how you're going to respond to some of these lies if you hear them in the future. And for anyone out there who maybe doesn't have a parent, who's not a parent of a kid with special needs, I think that these lies are an important reminder for the rest of us of what not to say when we're speaking to families. Thanks so much for everyone for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye-bye.